Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston, a congregation that welcomes you and extends a heartfelt and inclusive invitation to join us in meaningful worship and in service to the world. I'm Scott Cooper, Assistant Minister of Congregational Life, and I'd like to thank Reverend Dan King and Carol Burris for admirably leading us in worship while I was away. We greet all those who join us this morning, those here in our sanctuary, all of our many online viewers, así como el creciente número de participantes bilingües que nos acompañan desde sus hogares. I am excited to welcome to our pulpit the Reverend Claudia Jimenez, who is Minister of Faith Development at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Asheville, where she has served since 2018. Prior to her ordination, Reverend Jimenez served as Director of Religious Education at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Vero Beach, Florida. She is a certified religious educator through the Liberal Religious Educators Association and is a trained Our Whole Lives facilitator and a certified sexuality educator. She is married and has 2 adult daughters. Welcome. Due to an uptick in cases, we are again requiring the wearing of masks while inside the building. We hope it will only be for a brief time, but we continue to err on the side of caution. Now please join Dr. Rock for our first hymn.
Good morning. I invite you all to turn in your gray hymnals to number 361. Then join me in body or spirit as we sing. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Open, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Welcome to this place of kinship and possibility, to this place where the power of imagination is used to remake the world and create a beloved community that has yet to exist. Welcome to this place of narrative and tradition, to this place where the power of imagination is used to release the truth within us, and where we know that some stories that are true never happened. Welcome to this place of mind, body, and spirit, to this place where the power of imagination is used to enhance logic and propel the transcendent. Welcome to this place where love and imagination are boundless. Come, let us worship together.
Celebremos compartiendo nuestras vidas, encendiendo esta luz. This morning, I'm going to get your help with our special music. So I'm going to begin, and you can choose which part you'd like to join in on, okay? And you can actually switch parts if you'd like as you start to see what we're going to do. Between our divisions, I reach out to you. Won't you reach out to me? With all our voices and all our visions, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you. Won't you reach out to me? With all our voices and all our visions, we could make such sweet harmony.
Please join me in a spirit of reflection, a time that some call meditation and others name prayer. Breathe with me the breath of life. Breathe in for loving, for acceptance, and with a sense of calm. Breathe out the sorrow, the division, and the stress. Inhale as we share this interwoven, intricate web of affinity. Exhale as we feel one another's presence. Breathe with me as we gather to do the holy work of kinship and support. Open your mind, open your heart. God of many names and mystery beyond all our naming, Creator beyond the limits of our imagination, yet capable of imagining everything that is not, or might be. Grant us the imagination to envision how others experience the world, to understand, to empathize, to consider how their reality and ours are quite different, all while we are part of the same web of existence. May we be open to understanding their feelings, their worldviews, our differences, our commonalities, and may those insights lead us to act accordingly. Grant us the imagination to not be so restrained that our hopes may be realized within only a single generation. May we be granted an imagination expansive enough to envision a world too kind, too accepting, too loving to be attained in a single lifetime. May we be granted the love and patience to work with aspiration and without discouragement toward that world, to fill our days with striving toward that goal, toward a world that may not come into fruition for generations to come. We pray in the names of all those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten. We pray in the names of all helpers of humankind. Amen. We pause now to lift up that which sits heavy and light on our hearts. Georgette Dredge is recuperating nicely at home after surgery, and she appreciates phone calls. Gail Wilkins, a member since 2003, passed away on Wednesday, July 20th. Gail was active in our church and helped plan UU participation in the Houston Pride Parade. There'll be a memorial service planned in the coming months. Richard Brostad, a member of our church for 24 years, passed away Monday. The date of the memorial service is still pending. Larry Burnett, longtime member and friend of both First Church and Bay Area, died in February in Washington State. An online memorial was held on Thursday. Carol Gallanty, sister of member Diane Stotes, continues to undergo significant health challenges, so please keep them all in your prayers. We hold in our hearts those experiencing devastating weather, including those in eastern Kentucky. We mourn with those who have lost their homes and the families of those who have lost their lives. We continue to mourn and hold in our hearts those dealing with the results of violence, from around our city to those around the world. May we not only learn peace and learn love, may we practice them in our lives. I invite you now to say the name or bring to mind those you wish to be held by the loving embrace of this religious community. They are part of the great cloud of witness and memory, and we will, even if we do not know their names, hold them in our hearts. In this great cloud of witness and memory, amid this beloved community, we hear these names and hold them in our hearts. Let us remember the suffering and joy amid and among our community that we do not know. We pause in awe and wonder of the beauty, diversity, and mystery that is life. In the spirit of love, in the spirit of hope, and in the spirit of compassion, I invite each of you to enter into a time of silent prayer, meditation, or reflection.
Each week, our morning offering is shared with an organization that shares our Unitarian Universalist values and through which we may live out our principles in the world. This week, that organization is our own UUSC. The UUSC, the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, is a nonprofit, non-sectarian organization advancing human rights together with an international community of grassroots partners and advocates. UUSC's Emergency Response Fund provides vital assistance to people impacted by natural or human-made disasters, yet though whose access to aid is most limited. Currently, UUSC is using its resources from the Emergency Response Fund to support people who are fleeing the violence in Ukraine due to Russia's large-scale invasion. On the news in the last couple of weeks, you may have seen that beautiful blonde little girl, 4 years old, who was killed right in front of her parents, and her funeral was last week. This war is now 5 months, a little over, but 5 months. Civilians are the ones who are being significantly impacted by the war. Mrs. Zelensky, the wife of President Zelensky, was on TV this week asking for help from the United States and wherever that help could come, because its people are seriously dying and seriously have been impacted by the loss of their homes, their businesses, and so forth. Those in our sanctuary will find the instructions for text giving in the order of service, and those watching the live stream will see the instructions on your screen. Our regular Sunday morning offering collection invites us to weave a tapestry of love and action. We ask you to give generously. An offering will now be gratefully received.
Please join with me in saying the dedication to the offering that can be found in the order of service. To the work of this church, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings.
Our first reading is Life as Jazz. When you hit a wrong note, improvise. This is by Jake Falsey, and it was written in March of 2016 when he was 17 and a senior at Manchester High School. When learning to play alto saxophone as a concert band musician, I was taught mistakes should be minimized on stage, and anything less than a perfect performance is considered a failure. I was always told to practice until I couldn't play it wrong. Imperfections were seriously frowned upon and even penalized. On the flip side of the coin, when I play in the school jazz band, I find mistakes are not minded in the least. if they happen in the right context. Wrong notes are welcome as long as we can resolve them into harmony with that was given. In fact, the whole purpose of the style of jazz known as bebop is to do exactly that with improvisation. The famous jazz musician Miles Davis was known for and made a career of playing wrong notes. He was quoted as saying, "Do not fear mistakes, there are none." As a person who makes mistakes, I found what makes the difference in recovering is the way that you compose yourself and get out of trouble. Mistakes are a natural part of life, but many students feel the pressure to live up to the expectations that were placed upon them from birth to not make mistakes. Obviously, there are exceptions, but the fear of failure is in the lack of everybody's mind. What is not in the back of everybody's mind is that some mistakes can prevent failure. Being a jazz musician, I experiment with notes, scales, chords, and harmony every day. I am encouraged to go for it by my teachers and bandmates. I play jazz guitar, and it's not uncommon to sometimes play yourself into a musical jam. So, you do your best to play your way out of the mess you've made, and then, when it's over, talk about how it went. We say it's like composing music without an eraser. There is always risk in trying something new and different while playing, but if it does pay off, the reward is great. If I always tried to stay safe, playing the chords, scales, and notes I know I can always get to, my playing would never improve. In jazz, taking risks is everything, and more often than one would think, it pays off. This seems true for most anybody and anything. Chefs who don't experiment with their cooking may never find that special flavor they are seeking. An athlete who does not push himself at the gym will not get as strong as he could be. People are only as successful as their work ethic and willingness to take risks. A young age is the perfect time to overcome your fear of trying new things or journeying into the unknown. These adventures could amount to nothing, or they could lead to a lifetime hobby, pastime, or career. So far in my life, my motto has been to jump into the unknown 100% and to not let anybody or anything hold that passion back. So far, this theory has worked. This fall, I will be attending Western Connecticut State University, my #1 choice college, where I plan to study music education. The path to my getting into college to study music was not always so clear. When I was in middle school, I was cut from the jazz band. Nevertheless, I kept playing and learning. So, to anybody afraid of messing up, I say that mistakes are just a critical step to success.
I invite you to take the teal hymnal and turn to 1024. Then rise and join me in body or in spirit.
Spirit spirit move you with that song. Buenos dias. Good morning. I am grateful for the opportunity to be here with you today, and I bring you greetings from our congregation in Asheville. And this morning I invite you to consider improv. Could it be a spiritual practice? And so I'll begin with my own experience with improv. My very first class in seminary was entitled Creative Encounters, Ministry as Improv. So you might be thinking, en serio, really? You mean they make all this stuff up? And in fact, as with anything in life, there are no scripts. And in many ways, we make it up as we go along. We are always, siempre, improvising to life as it reveals itself to us, day by day. Like the jazz musician in our reading, our perception of the world emerges between the interaction of our experience, our expectations, and the unpredictable events of the day, the quotidian stuff of life, lo cotidiano. The idea of ministry as improv just makes sense to me. Ministers must be prepared for anything, cualquier cosa, prayers, invocations, pastoral conversations, and sometimes a few words from the minister. So that is why when I moved to Asheville, North Carolina a few years ago, as part of my professional development, I took improv classes. It was not only a way of meeting people in my new community, but it really was a way of preparing to serve my new congregation. And as I've gotten older, I've been challenging myself to move me beyond my comfort level. And so improv appealed, but it was not an easy yes. Because you see, I tend to be a very detailed, very organized, as my daughter would say, super organizada person. Any Enneagram 1s at home or here? If you're an Enneagram 1, you know exactly what I mean. And those concepts of spontaneity and improvisation are quite difficult. But I did it. I survived 8 weeks of improv training with total strangers. And in terms of this sermon, which I assure you is not improvised, I take inspiration from Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said of preachers that they deal out to the people their life passed through the fire of thought. I love that image, our lives passing through the fire of thought, el fuego de pensamiento. But first, how many of you are familiar with improvisational theater? I see a couple of you are. So you may have experienced Tina Fey or Amy Poehler or Stephen Colbert. But improv doesn't always have to be funny. It is basically theater without a script in which the players, actors in improv are called players, the players create a scene in the moment based on a phrase or a word provided by the audience. It is spontaneous, it is collaborative, it is creative. And one of the ways that improv players prepare is by playing games. And as adults, we have often lost that ability to just be playful and let go. So as you can imagine, an Enneagram 1 playing games with a whole bunch of adults was just not easy. There was a lot of playing with our voices, playing with our bodies, miming, chiming, acting out. So for example, one of the games that we played was a game of catch. And so we were invited in our circle to create a ball, and throw that ball to somebody. You get the idea. That was the most fun I had when I was doing improv, all those games that we played at the beginning. And Augusto Boal, a Brazilian theater practitioner, described games the following way. He said they were warm-ups to shed inhibitions and establish a form of theatrical communion. Theatrical communion. I think the games that we played and the work that we did together accomplished that. We started off as a group of strangers, awkward and maybe some like me mortified, and we learned to play well together, and we shared a lot of laughter. Now, one of the fundamental principles of improv that informs my life is the concept of yes and it made such an impact that I even tattooed it on my arm when I graduated from seminary. And in improv, yes means that you accept your partner's offer and advance the scene. So for example, if your partner says, "Look at that gorgeous green sky," you might say, "Yeah, it matches my sparkly green nail polish on my toes." Now, listen to this. What if the person said, "Hey, look at that gorgeous green sky," and the other player said, "But it's blue"? That shuts down the conversation. And in improv, you accept the idea, and it's sometimes as in life, you accept the idea, you don't necessarily have to agree with it, but you choose a response that moves the scene forward. And let me give you an example about how that concept of yes and really made an impact in my life. My first year of seminary, I was serving my last year on my school board. And I happened to serve on a board that was very conservative and intransigent. And I always found myself going into board meetings super prepared and always ready to make an argument. So when somebody would say something, I came with all my information, and I would say, "But have you considered this?" and just go on and on. After improv, and actually that didn't really go well. Nobody really listened to me. But after improv, I changed my strategy. I prepared, I did all my research, and instead of always coming in with "but," because I really tend to be a "but" person, I always kind of react with that "but," I started using and I found that saying to my peers, "Yes, I heard you, and have you considered," and then shared all my facts and information, really changed the tone of our relationship. It was a seemingly small modulation in how I engaged, but it really made a difference. And I found that even though my colleagues didn't always agree with me, they at least didn't feel attacked by my "but," which can be a very promiscuous thing that just shuts everything down. And so our conversations over that year were less combative, and I found that sometimes they even listened enough to agree with the points that I was trying to make. And so that really made a difference, and it's something that I try to embrace in my life. And even now, even with, for example, being so zoomed out, tired of having to do things on Zoom, I use that same attitude. Yes, I'm exhausted. I'm tired of Zooming. I'm tired of YouTube. And this is one way in this time when this virus is becoming endemic that we are able to continue to stay in conversation with each other and stay connected. That yes and approach also helps me when I struggle with the news, because las noticias are often unbearable, and I sometimes would prefer just to remain ignorant, which is really not an option in these times. And so I use that yes and approach. Yes, we lack moral, compassionate leadership by some of our elected officials regarding important issues such as reproductive health, voting rights, and the climate crisis, just to name a few. And this is what gives me hope, and there are caring, committed people in cities and communities all over this country and beyond that are working for justice in the face of such oppressive decision-making. And I find that understanding of that collective action that is happening matters. So yes, sometimes it sucks, and people are coming together and working for change. Another important takeaway from improv is the importance of being in the moment, meaning paying attention and listening deeply, poniendo atención y escuchando, which is sometimes difficult in a world where we are constantly looking at devices and constantly distracted. But in improv, it's very important because you need to be attentive to what your partner is saying, to their body language, and you also, when you're listening deeply, you feel a certain comfort with silence, and that helps you avoid being reactive when your scene partner says something totally off the wall, and you are able to just listen, and in that silence, figure out what your response is going to be. And I always wish, when I look back on my life, that I had taken improv when I was raising my two daughters, who are now young adults. Because I really think that pausing before responding and being creative in my responses may have added humor and levity amidst those moments of improvised parenting. And I think my partner, who's a jazz pianist, understood that approach somewhat better than I did, because he did find ways to incorporate humor and play into our interactions. And ultimately, I think good improv is all about nuestras relaciones, about our relationships. And isn't it the same in everything that we do in life? It is about community building like we do in religious community. Sometimes the I focus interferes with the trust building in improv, and that I focus also interferes in nurturing the communal we in a congregation. How often do we mistakenly think that even in religious community, it's about me, what I want, what I'm comfortable with, what I need? If we are to create that truly beloved community that we talk about so often, what are we willing to do to be welcoming to all? The answer is important if we want to create a diverse community of spiritual seekers. Oh, and one more thing about improv that is an important takeaway, and it's that it's okay to fail. Really, it is. Not all our ands are successful. When we improvise, we are taking a risk, and mistakes are opportunities for growth and learning. In improv, when missteps occur, each actor will do their best to make the others look good and move the action forward. Think about that. That attitude of making the other look good instead of just reacting and calling them out and embarrassing them for their mistake. Isn't that an attitude that we can use in our everyday lives, calling us to be more gracious and compassionate with each other in these times when we all are feeling stress and we are all preoccupied with so many things that are going on? So one of my favorite warm-ups in class was our entire group raising their hands and saying, "I failed." So I'm going to invite you to rise in body or spirit, and at the count of 3, shout as loud as you can, "I failed." 1, 2, 3. I failed! Woohoo! How did that feel? That's liberating. You may sit down. So I will close with a final story, which is a favorite story, and by now you might imagine that I love jazz. And so this is a story about Wynton Marsalis that appeared in The Atlantic a few years ago. And the story tells us that he was playing the 1930s ballad, "I Don't Stand a Ghost of a Chance with You," and was just totally on fire. He was playing, the audience was captivated, there was a communion going on, and somebody's cell phone rang at the very climax of the piece. And as you can imagine, the magic was lost. People started chattering and sipping their drinks. And this is how the author of the article describes what happened next. He says, Marsalis paused for a beat, motionless, and his eyebrows arched. The cell phone offender scooted into the hall as the chatter in the room grew louder. Still frozen at the microphone, Marsalis replayed the silly cell phone melody, note for note. Then he repeated it and began improvising variations on the tune. The audience slowly came back to him. In a few minutes, he resolved the improvisation and ended up exactly where he left off. The ovation was tremendous. Can you imagine? What an improviser. He embraced that challenge with grace and turned toward possibility. And every time I think about that story and I think about my own interactions, I challenge myself. How can I, when things are challenging, when I'm angry, when I feel I'm the one that has the answer, when I disagree, how often am I willing to just settle and embrace possibility and be present? Or when I make mistakes, how often do we beat ourselves up instead of allowing ourselves grace? So this coming week, I invite you to consider ways to use yes and thinking, to embrace discomfort knowing that it can often lead to transformation, to turn toward possibility, to be more in the moment. Because in the words of Reverend Marianne McKibben Dana, who is also a fan of improv, life is constantly handing us stuff. Gifts sometimes, tragedies too often, opportunities all the time. Opportunities to be the change we want to see in the world, opportunity to respond to hate with love, and opportunities to not let unkindness be the last word. May we embrace those opportunities in the days to come. May it be so. Que así sea.
That's all I'm going to ask you to sing today, okay, are those words. Tengo sed de ti. It means I thirst for you. The response is you're the fountain of love. And then again you will sing, Tengo sed de ti, I thirst for you. And I will sing, your love is freedom. So just work with me. Tengo sed de ti. 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 Oh, fuente del amor. Tengo sed de ti. Tu amor es libertad. Tengo sed de ti. Oh, fuente de la paz. Tengo sed de ti. Haces libertad. Tengo sed de ti. Oh, fuente del amor. Tengo sed de ti. Tu amor es libertad. Tengo sed de ti. Oh, fuente del amor. Tengo sed de ti. Tu amor es libertad.
Please join me with the words in your order of service for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
As our benediction this morning, I leave you with a Franciscan blessing that is often called an improviser's blessing. May God bless you with a restless discomfort about easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that you may seek truth boldly and love deep within your heart. May God bless you with holy anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that you may tirelessly work for justice, freedom, and peace among all people. May God bless you with the gift of tears to shed for those who suffer from pain, rejection, starvation, or the loss of all they cherish, so that you may reach out your hand to comfort them and transform their pain into joy. And may God bless you with foolishness to believe that you can really make a difference in this world, so that you are able, with God's grace, to do what others claim cannot be done. Go in peace, go in love, go and play and love the world. Amen.
Thank you so much for watching our service today. We're glad you're part of our online community, where we welcome people who are diverse in faith, ethnicity, history, as well as gender identity and sexual orientation. There are many different ways you can get involved in our community. One you can do right now is by clicking like below or subscribing to our channel. If you're interested in joining our congregation, please email us at membership@firstuuhouston.org. Thanks so much for joining us.